people take, well, first off, I know what I'm talking about with the climate stuff, so I'm just going to go ahead and promote.
Well, you're not the only one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you should probably realize like that there is, in the same way that there are narratives I think you're now more awake to. The climate hoax is one that funds trillions of dollars, and we are not running out of space. You could fit the entire world if you stacked it like New York City in Dallas. So
fit. I just said it's
you
not
said
about.
Fit, but the point is that the hurricanes are down. The whole idea that every time it rains, it's because something bad is happening is like it's okay. What was your climate disaster growing up? Mine was global warming. They don't even say it anymore.
They don't say global warming anymore?
No, they don't. No, they say climate change. They went from global cooling.
Maybe not in your bubble, but in the world they do.
No, they don't. They went from global cooling to global warming.
They never were in global. No one was ever talking about. It was one. That's such a stupid talking point that you keep repeating. It's a zombie lie. It was one article in one magazine in one day, 1 week in Newsweek or something. Nobody was talking about global cooling. Yes, we understand that the planet is always changing. That's a different story.
No, there was a whole climate alarmism via the IPCC for global cooling.
No, there wasn't.
Okay. There was.
But do you believe people landed on the moon?
Well, let's just back that up.
Because if you don't, then I think that's
no.
I think that really sets a standard for this discussion.
Oh, Bill Maher, what are we going to do with you? You know, sometimes he gives us these glimmers of hope where you think he's starting to wake up, and then other times he utterly disappoints. Now, this weekend, Candace Owens went on his Club Random podcast, and for a while, they had a pretty good discussion, but we need to react today, as we usually do, to the moments where Bill Maher reverts back to his default liberal programming, right? We've highlighted this, where certain issues he'll kind of make sense or seem reasonable, and then other things. Example being Donald Trump. That's a big one. If you bring up the name Donald Trump around Bill Maher, he will immediately revert back into an angry, screaming robot, totally devoid of independent thought. And of course, it seems today that climate change is another one of those issues. They got into a pretty heated debate here. It seems that Bill Maher still doesn't really get it on this issue, and unfortunately didn't really give Candace Owens a chance, a fair chance at least, to respond to him. So we will react to that and talk about it in today's video. But before we get into that, let's talk about your financial security. Folks, with all that's going on in the world right now, it has never been a better time to invest your money in safe, stable, time-tested assets like gold, silver, and your precious metals. Now, investing in precious metals may sound scary. It may sound like an alien world to you, but don't worry. Our friends today at Noble Gold Investments make that process easy. Noble Gold, as you know, are big supporters of this channel. They're who I trust, and they also have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, so you can be assured no cons, no games, just simple, great ways to talk you through the, again, what may be a scary process of investing in precious metals. So if you're remotely interested, or you just simply want to help support our channel, be sure to use my affiliate link at thevincedao.com. Again, that is thevincedao.com, or give them a call at 877-646-5347. Again, that is 877-646-5347. They will, for free, walk you through all of the best ways, the best options to invest in precious metals. No commitment. You don't have to buy anything right off the gate. Just give them a call. Tell them I sent you. Great way to support the channel over at Noble Gold. All right, with that said, folks, let's get into today's reaction video. So they start off this podcast where Candace Owens is basically just talking about having kids and how many kids she has. And then Bill Maher decides to make it about the planet and basically makes the argument that having kids is bad for the planet, bad for the environment, and bad for climate change. So here we go. Let's get into that.
She's got 6 kids. I feel I'm naturally competitive.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. It's really bad.
Well,
it's bad. I'm very, very competitive, so I feel like now I might just have 6 kids, just 7, just to beat them. It's really bad.
Definitely bad for the planet.
I know.
Let's not get into that right away. I mean,
kids are bad for the planet.
Well, everything.
They're pretty eco-friendly, actually. Adults are bad for the planet.
Well, they're not eco-friendly in the sense that they're going to have kids, and you're just making more people who are using resources. People who argue about planet and. Elon Musk, I don't understand his whole.
So it's also necessary to further the human species and society, by the way. Okay. Yes, they use resources. They also create resources. Okay, that's kind of how humanity works, just right off the gate. Anyways,
whole thing about like we should have more people. It's like there's room. Of course, there's room. It's not about room. It's about resources. We don't have the resources. We have the room. We just don't have. I read just the other day where the what did they call it? The groundwater? We've already like sucked out all the groundwater that we can possibly use. There's just not enough rain falling for like all your kids. It's all about you, Candace.
Thank you. It's interesting.
Okay, so right off the gate, first of all, Bill Maher basically tries to make the argument that he knows about this issue more than Elon Musk. If you're familiar with Elon Musk, he's basically making the anti-sort of neo-eugenicist argument recently. He's been saying, actually, humanity and especially the West needs to have more kids because if not, we're going to actually have a population crisis, blah, blah, blah. He's an expert on that, right? So just going to point that out, right? Bill, you're not smarter than Elon Musk, and neither am I. So you're a talk show host, okay? Okay, anyways.
Because I've just kind of read this whole book debunking all of that, which I feel like in 2 years, you're going to have a totally different perspective on all that. Because I've seen your growth and where you were a few years ago to where you are now.
No.
And, you know, Elon Musk, I think, is probably pretty educated about the planet.
Right.
Well,
resources. Do you think?
No.
No?
Not necessarily. Not if you, not
but you are. But you are, right?
You think that we can somehow keep putting people on the planet which has a finite amount of resources. Oh, look, there's my zucchini that I gave to, I was looking for that.
Okay, so while they talk about zucchinis, I want to address this seriously. It's actually a very kind of shallow and uneducated argument to say that, oh, well, surely we can't have more people on the planet because what about resources, right? I would point out, obviously no one knows what's going to happen, but I would point out that historically, all of the quote unquote scientists or social scientists who have made these types of arguments have been completely wrong. Okay. At the start of the Industrial Revolution, there's a famous guy named Thomas Malthus. Some of you guys may have heard of Malthusian theory. And he basically argued that, well, during the Industrial Revolution, everyone had all these kids and now the planet's going to run out of resources and there's going to be mass famine and all that stuff. That never happened. A big reason that never happened is because he did not account for the fact that human beings naturally innovate, and in many ways having more kids allows for more innovators to be born, right? And so there actually never ended up being any of this population or famine crisis. And then in the 1960s, I think the guy's name is Paul Ehrlich. You can correct me if I'm wrong. He was a prominent UC Berkeley professor who made a famous bet basically arguing the same thing, that the earth was going to run out of resources. We have this population problem. And of course, the opposite happened. Actually, resources became more plentiful and cheaper. Why? Because it's actually not that simple. It's actually not that simple. Having more humans does not account, and saying that's a bad thing does not account for the fact that human beings can naturally innovate, right? And then on top of that, maybe it's true that countries like India, for instance, oh, well, they have a population problem. But if you look at the West, it's actually the reverse of that. We're not having enough kids. Virtually every birth rate in the Western world is below replacement. And what does that mean? Among other things, you know, Bill Maher is obviously a liberal. He cares a lot about stuff like Social Security and those types of elderly programs and all of that. What we are hitting, what countries like Japan are hitting, what a lot of places are dealing with is actually because people are not having enough kids, we have a lot of elderly people and not enough young people around to actually staff the workplace and kind of keep that welfare state alive for the elderly population. And so you're actually going to get population shortage, population crisis. This is a real thing. You don't have enough people to work and do things, and you actually have economic collapse because of it. So, you know, on many levels, he's wrong. And again, what I would just point out is that historically, you look at Malthus, you look at Ehrlich. I'm not going to get into the whole nerdy stuff with all of that, but just going to point that out. These arguments of population shortage or, you know, there's too much population just historically really have never been true. And if I were to guess, I think in many ways it's part of a greater psyop. They don't want people in the West to have kids because, well, you know, they want the West to collapse demographically and other things for many different reasons. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
How people take, well, first off, I know what I'm talking about with the climate stuff, so I'm just going to go ahead and promote.
Well, you're not the only one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you should probably realize like that there is in the same way that there are narratives I think you're now more awake to. The climate hoax is one that funds trillions of dollars. And we are not running out of space. You could fit the entire world if you stacked it like New York City and Dallas. So
fit. I just said it's not about.
Fit, but the point is that hurricanes are down. The whole idea that every time it rains, it's because something bad is happening is like it's okay.
What I will agree with you on is this. The environmentalists do often lie because they have this idea, this issue is so important, and by the way, it is so important, that it's okay if we shade the truth to get people on our side, and I don't agree with that. I'm always—
You've lied every time.
Well, not every time.
What was your climate disaster growing up? Mine was global warming. They don't even say it anymore.
They don't say global warming anymore?
No, they don't. No, they say climate change. They went from global cooling.
Maybe not in your bubble, but in the world they do.
No, they don't. They went from—
No, I don't hear global warming at all anymore. They changed it because in some places the globe is not warming, and they had to explain their nonsense by saying, okay, well, it's not global warming, it's climate change.
From global cooling to global warming.
They never were in global— no one was ever talking— it was one— that's such a stupid talking point that you keep repeating. It's a zombie lie.
Global
it was
cooling?
One article in one magazine in one day, 1 week in Newsweek or something. Nobody was talking about global cooling. Yes, we understand that the planet is always changing.
That's just not true. A lot of people were talking about global cooling. It was not one article in Newsweek. As the live chat pointed out last night, Carl Sagan in the 1970s, Carl Sagan made a documentary talking about global cooling and how the Earth was bound for the next ice age. This was a very prominent thing. Documentaries talked about it. Prominent scientists talked about it. And just as an anecdotal example, I would ask any of you older viewers who were around in the 70s and stuff, did you hear about global cooling? Let's play that game. If you heard about global cooling and you were taught about that, or they talked about that, and it was not just some small, one article said it. If it was a prominent thing that was talked about back then, let me know in the comments, because I wasn't around then, but from everything I've gathered, that's completely untrue. No, global cooling, the idea that the Earth was going to hit an ice age, was a mainstream scientific theory in the 1970s. So just...
That's a different story.
No, there was a whole climate alarmism via the IPCC for global cooling.
No, there wasn't.
Okay.
No, there wasn't.
There
You're just
was.
denying reality
Do
now.
you believe people landed on the moon?
Well, let's just back
Because
that
if
up.
you don't,
Because you're
then I think that's—
no.
I think that
You
really
are
sets a standard for this discussion.
You are taking—
What does that have to do with anything? So this is what they're going to go over the next few minutes is Bill Maher, because he's losing, because he doesn't know what he's talking about in regards to any of this climate stuff or population stuff, and Candace Owens knows much more. He diverts the entire conversation to say, but you don't believe in the moon landing, which of course is totally irrelevant and unrelated. It doesn't make you right or wrong about this stuff. But here, let's get into that.
Something that was a Twitter—
You can't answer it?
Joke. I'm going to answer your question, but I'm just trying, because I think you should add context, because what you're doing now is you're jumping away from an actual meaningful discussion about climate change and the hoax that's surrounding it and making people fearful to have children. And you're like going, well, didn't you once tweet? When I said, literally, I said in the tweet, let's have some fun today. What is one conspiracy theory that almost got you and that you think like could possibly be real? And I said, the one that always gets me every time is the moon landing. How come we haven't gone back? So you're taking this one tweet where people then shared the things that they think that were not really serious or political on this long thread to now apply to a conversation about climate change.
Okay, but just to be clear, people did land on the moon.
I don't know.
Okay, there we go.
I don't know.
I do know.
I just want to know why we didn't go back.
We did go back.
What, did we go back? What year?
To the moon?
We people on the moon?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm asking a serious question. When did we go? When did we go back to people walking on the moon? 69. Okay.
July 20th, 1969.
Yeah.
We went back like 10 more times.
Who went back? Who walked on the moon?
America. No,
but like, what were the astronauts' names? Educate me. Why
Who the fuck remembers what the astronauts' names were?
It's a pretty big deal to walk on the moon.
The first guy, and then after that, yes.
Let's walk on it.
Okay, again, this conversation is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Honestly, the moon landing stuff is not to me, it's like a Reddit tier conspiracy. It's not important. It's just something we kind of laugh about. It's similar to flat Earth, right? She doesn't say she denies the moon landing. She just says she doesn't know. Who cares? Why is this important? And then furthermore, not to peddle anything, but the whole basis of the moon landing conspiracy is that, well, why haven't we gone back since the 70s or whatever, right? because we seem to have lost the technology or something to land humans on the moon. Again, I don't know. I don't care. Okay. I'm not saying I believe in it or whatever, but I just don't care. But again, this is a complete diversion.
How many?
I don't remember the name. Like another dozen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Another dozen humans walked on the moon?
None of the modern age.
Americans. All Americans.
Okay. We don't remember that.
We kept going back. Apollo 13 was the one they made the movie about. That was the one they aborted. But that was after we had landed. Apollo 11, I think, was...
I'm not talking about space missions. I'm talking about actual people walking on the moon.
Yes, landing on the moon and walking on it. First of all, it is an impressive scientific feat. It's not out of the realm of like, how could that possibly happen? It's only 250,000 miles away. They had figured out enough to be able to do it, even with these shitty computers that they had in 1969.
It's a distraction.
Yes, it's risky, and we did lose people doing it. But we did do it. I mean, plainly. I mean, the idea that you could think that this was some sort of hoax, I'm sorry, but it colors everything else.
I'm just saying that, like, I'm just not, like, I feel like you're just trying to find this one. Like, I've never talked about this on my show. You're literally talking about one funny tweet.
Yeah, it's
relevant.
It's really not that relevant.
That you won't say,
no,
absolutely, people walked on the moon. It's relevant.
I feel that you are finding an angle here to try to talk about something that I've never talked about on my podcast. I've never talked to people on a debate stage.
But it's
never
out
talked about
there.
it on a college. You probably had a producer dig up what you thought were...
It's literally a fun... like, if you look at the framing of her tweet, it's just a fun conspiracy theory. Oh, what's a conspiracy theory you believe? Oh, dinosaurs weren't real, the moon landing... It doesn't freaking matter. It's not relevant. Who cares? It doesn't. It's just
the most absurd
it's a distraction.
Tweets. Like, there's no way it's out.
Candace,
like, you're saying it's out there. There's not even articles about this. It's so obscure that it's like literally. I mean, it said like, let's have some fun. What are some of the things that? What are some conspiracy theories that you read that you have questions about? And I was like, the moon landing.
First of all, I promise you, there is no production on this show. No,
it's a pretty niche thing. Of all the things I talk about and I'm known for, like, there wasn't even an article written about this about me.
I wasn't planning to talk about it.
Yeah, so it's like, how did you get here?
Because
you saw it on Twitter.
I got here. Somehow I knew it.
But how?
Because it's out there.
But it's
because
not. It's not even in my Wikipedia. Like, it's so obscure. It's so niche that I'm just like curious.
I don't think that's the case, because I think I read it in the Vanity Fair article about you.
No.
Oh, Vanity Fair. Yeah, they're definitely esteemed journalists. It's not a tabloid magazine, right?
Well, that's what I mean. It's not even relevant for, like, I've never ever had a single person sit down and ask me this question.
Well, then
so
I've
just
done
like,
America a service, because we find the baseline of your thinking. I'm sorry, but that is relevant. That you don't think men landed on the moon.
No, I just said I would like. First off, what I specifically said was,
you don't know.
I want to know why. And I think even Elon Musk said this in his timepiece.
Ask him about it.
Yeah,
Ask him about the moon.
He did address it in his timepiece.
I think he probably believes it happened.
But I'm just not interested in this topic, like, at all. So it's just like, you just came in so fiery about something that I am not known for. That was like an obscure tweet of like, it started with "let's have some fun," and it was in a joking manner. And suddenly you're like, how could you not believe the moon landing? And I'm like, the energy is like a little.
My apologies, and I don't want this to be adversarial.
No, it was just surprising.
If we hadn't got on to global warming,
that's something that I actually believe. So I'm okay to have this topic.
Bill, you started the discussion about global warming. What are you talking about? He's like, oh, it's your fault because global warming. They started this podcast off talking about kids and how many kids she has. And he made the snarky comment to say kids are bad for the planet. And that's how we got. So Bill's guided the entire discussion. So it's his fault that the discussion's gotten here.
No, but I connected it to that because it was like, okay.
But I'm in the public sphere talking about that. I've had experts on my show talking about, like, Gregory Weinstein talked about his book about the climate change hoax. I care deeply about that because of the implications and how the climate change hoax and the trillions of dollars that are basically disappearing for things like Paris Accord agreement. Like, I'm very much on record in a sincere manner talking about that.
Not to beat a dead horse, but if you think the moon landing is a hoax, it colors my view of what you think of the global warming being a hoax.
Okay.
So let's get on.
But I never said the moon landing is a hoax.
Well, you said
I said name one conspiracy theory.
I asked you point
almost
blank.
got you. I said I don't know anything about. I don't know anything about. I can't even debate you. You're sitting here telling me that 12 men have gone to the moon since. I don't know anything about it, and so I keep a very. Okay. I think that if there's one thing that people will say about me is I don't come into conversations about things that I don't know. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert on the moon landing.
But you're such a brilliant person.
But on things that I actually know. So I'm willing to. I'm willing to because I don't care.
Would you read about it?
I literally don't. It says it's to me.
Would you read
utterly
about it?
incognito.
Okay, I think we get the point. To make a long story short, again, she said, "Let's have some fun." Blah blah blah. Moon landing. Like I said, it's not a very serious conspiracy theory, right? It's not 9/11. It's not JFK. It's not anything that actually has relevance to your worldview or anything. It's kind of, like I said, a Reddit tier conspiracy. Let's just talk about it for fun. She says, let's have some fun. Blah, 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 moon landing. It's not a big deal. It's not that deep, right? And Bill is prying. He's trying to make a series. It doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. She doesn't even take it seriously. She said, let's have some fun. You never peddled a conspiracy theory for fun. Hasn't everyone done that? Maybe I'm just a weird one. But yeah, in short, kind of a disappointing moment in this podcast because I would have liked to actually see them have the real conversation about climate change, having enough kids, all of that stuff. You could tell, though, Bill doesn't know a lot about it. Candace knows much more. And so Bill just tries to distract the entire conversation by saying, well, you're wrong because you don't believe in the moon landing. Not very sound argumentative reasoning or any of those things. But with that said, let me know what you thought of that exchange in the comment section down below. Feel free to watch this entire podcast. It does actually get better and more constructive, but just had to react to that and talk about that because that was just disappointing. It would have been an actually really insightful conversation. And I think that's a debate people need to have more often. But what are you going to do? I guess talking about the moon landing is much more relevant than talking about, the idea of whether or not you should have kids, whether or not humanity should actually repopulate the earth and climate change and the future of the planet, whatever, from Bill Maher's perspective, whatever. I guess the moon landing is more important, right? With that said, folks, let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Again, folks, be sure to check out our friends over at Noble Gold. Great way to support the channel. People always ask, how can I support your work? You can support my work by giving our friends at Noble Gold some business. Again, if you're remotely curious, no strings attached, thevincedao.gold.com or dial 877-646-5347. And until next time, folks, Alpha moves only. God bless. Have a very good day and peace.